Viewers, you've seen this guest once before on P Gurus, about a year back. She is an Indian author, screenwriter, and columnist. She has written screenplays for films such as the romantic drama Anjana Anjani in 2010 and the thriller Kahani in 2012. Apart from writing for films, Kala also has written two novels, Almost Single in 2007 and Almost There in 2013. She is now a contributing editor at India Ahead. Meet Advaita Kala. Advaita ji, namaskar and welcome to P Guru's channel.
Thank you so very much for having me. And I want to even thank you about last year, because at the height of the pandemic, when we were running that community kitchen, you very kindly opened up your platform to us. And we were desperately seeking funds, and we had a lot of inquiries from Indians settled abroad. Unfortunately, the NGO we were with could not accept funds from foreign
I know that feeling. I can't accept funds from India right now. So I'm using Google, YouTube join memberships. So there's a 30% cut, but I'm saying it's all for a good cause. So please go ahead.
Absolutely. I mean, in fact, I would say please contribute who can to your channel, because you do yeoman service, and I have a lot of gratitude to you for doing that last year.
Nothing. I mean, it's the least I could do, Advaita ji. So today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the new reorientation or reorganization, if you will, of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. I read recently that Dattaji has a new role to play now. And so what does it mean? Because RSS, unless you really are associated with the organization, you really don't know how things work. Although I did go through a little bit of, the hierarchy, and it looks like Dattaji now is number 2 behind Mohanji Bhagwatji. So maybe you can walk us through a little bit about how RSS functions. One thing that I have a grouse, I wouldn't say grouse, but I a grudging admiration for them, a grudging respect for them, that the right hand doesn't know what the left hand does. They're too modest. And that's the problem I have. I mean, sometimes they do so many good things, and yet they get so much shtick from people. That's what I don't like about it. But that's okay. I mean, now I think RSS is beginning to come out of that. They are prominently saying a few things that we have done this. I think it's very important to, these days in this age of social media, you have to do all that. I'm sorry, I'm rambling along here. I need to let you have a say here. So please take it away.
No, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, people forget. They look at RSS in the present day and see the largest voluntary organization in the world, see the Prime Minister. Prime Minister Modi is probably the most popular Prime Minister we've had in generations, owing us his roots to this organization. So they see it as a very powerful entity. But if you study the history of the RSS, and it's about 96 years now, in 2025, it'll be 100 years of the organization, it has been mostly a persecuted organization. It has been targeted very often. It has been incorrectly blamed for a lot of things, as a result of which this was an organization that shunned any kind of media, and just quietly worked on the ground, because they said that the media is anyway not going to necessarily present the true picture. And that is what the media did do for decades, not just 1, 2, 3 years, but decades. So as a result of that, the perception is that there's a level of opacity, or they don't really want to come out and be in the public. But this isn't true at all. It's just I know of incidents when very senior RSS functionaries, for example, went to speak to an editor with a little press note and an introduction and say that, we are doing this as well. Please, give us a chance and cover this. And the editor actually said that from the door was ajar. And it was a very senior editor of a newspaper. And he says, don't waste my time by making me speak to these people. And, the gentleman just got up and left. And this has happened many, many, many times. And of course, post Modi's win in particular, suddenly, the doors of the media flung open. But the RSS did not necessarily lose its reticence when it came to, kind of interacting with the media because of this past relationship. But now, yes, over time, there has been openness from the media to really look at things in a more balanced way. And that has seen a lot of the work that they do, especially, for example, in this COVID time. The kind of seva activities that they've done have been absolutely incredible, without any bias, in terms of religion, community, or any of that.
And I just wanted to add to what you just said, Advaita ji. I know a friend of mine who works in a very reputed company in India, and he doesn't like his name to be mentioned, but
Mhm.
he is involved, his wife is involved in CSR, corporate social responsibility. And I met him a few years ago, and what he was saying was that he said, that we think that this company is a fairly reputed company and has branches all over India, so we think that we can get to any disaster spot within a few hours. But every time we go there, by the time we make it there, this RSS is already set up all the hard part. They have found a way to get clean water. They have set up drainages. They've got blankets. This is what he said. He said, all we would like to do is just to give them the money or whatever resources they want, like if there is engineering resources or something, and let them do the work. They are almost always exactly sure what needs to be done. The kitchens get set up correctly. He said, this is a well-oiled machine. Unfortunately, there are many such individuals, people who know what RSS does. And that's why I was trying to tell you that the right hand doesn't know what the left hand does. Please continue.
You're absolutely right. I remember this incident talking to a gentleman who was much older, about 75 or so. And he was not from the RSS, had no connection. And I recall this earlier as well, during the bubonic plague in Surat in the mid-90s. He was a pilot and he flew his little hobby aircraft. And he felt like maybe I should do something. So he said, let me take medical supplies and drop them, because this was really cordoned off, the whole area, and no one was being it was like a zone that you didn't enter. It was a
Right, right,
contaminated zone, a whole
right,
city,
right.
and people were dying by the hundreds. And he flew low over Surat city to kind of make those drops, and he saw this exodus, of the two-lane highway, and one lane was completely jammed with cars leaving, one after the other, because people were just fleeing that kind of the pandemic. And he says, on the other hand, I saw these brown things kind of coming in on the other direction into the city. So he's like, who are these fools? I mean, what are they doing coming in? And he said, later on, I realized it was the RSS. And this is so they were helping with cremations, they were helping with actual cleaning of the nalas and all of those things, to kind of fight this plague. And this goes really back to their history. Dr. Hedgewar, the founder of the RSS, he lost both his parents in that plague of 100 years ago that we talk about a lot now. So he lost both his parents on the same day. You can imagine, as a 14-year-old boy, he went through that traumatic experience. So from the very beginning, he inculcated this sense that, when it comes to these kind of situations, selfless service is something that we have to focus on. And it's remarkable how they've not only continued with that strain of thought, but even expanded it to such an extent, like you say, that they're the first responders, in so many situations, with whatever resources they have.
So let's fast forward to the present.
Mhm.
And so this reorganization, was it mainly because some people attained retirement age in RSS? What was the reason for that? I'm a little unclear about that part.
Well, I mean, this is something that is a decision that is taken every 3 years. What happens is that once somebody is set in the job, then it's quite likely, if physically they're fit enough, because it's a very, very demanding job. It requires a lot of travel, like regular travel, multiple engagements in the day. For example, a Sarkariva's schedule will be set 1 year in advance. That's really how busy he is. So it's something that's a routine thing, in a sense, every 3 years. But a lot of times the person may get re-elected, which is what happened with Bhaiyaji Joshi. He was there for multiple terms. He did 3 terms in all, if I'm correct. And for a while there had been some murmurs that he was now getting of age and wanted to take a break. He had some knee issues. He got a knee replacement. Then his health improved, and he's very active. And I think he just come to a point where I think he was saying, let's kind of let me move on. And Dattaji was, the next. The interesting thing in the RSS, I must emphasize this, is that nothing takes place without 100% agreement. So, the fact that he's been elected, it wasn't a majority vote that brought him to the seat. It was that each and every person wanted him there. And this is called Samuhik Nirnay in the RSS, which is collective decision making. And it's an integral part of their ethos and their culture, and also what they believe ensures a smooth running of the organization without personal ego, without factionalism, and all of those other things that come with like these kind of contested situations. So this is the way that they found around it. So Dattaji's elevation, a lot of media observers, of course, were saying that it was imminent. But of course, there's no guarantee of what can happen tomorrow. No one can say, especially with the RSS. So I think his movement into this position was important because was significant, of course, because it's a change, a very big change. Amongst the general secretaries, there are about five, six. It keeps varying. And he was the most experienced. He's been a general secretary from 2009. So he was the senior most in that group as well. So that, I think, also worked in his favor. And, the elevation came when it came.
And the term for Mohanji Bhagwatji, when does his term conclude, or is he, any idea what? I have no clue. I just am a layperson here.
No, of course, I understand. There's no term as such for the Sarsanchalak. What has usually happened is that he has decided at his time, in his space, in his time of life, when he would like to kind of move on. This is the interesting thing, because the second Sarsanchalak, Guruji Govalkar, was, I think, around 34 when he became the Sarsanchalak, which is very, very young. Yes. And then he led for a good 20, 22 years. And this was by design because, Dr. Hedgewar, the first Sarsanchalak, who passed away very young, actually, in the year 1940 it was that he passed away, felt that a young man was needed for this position to build on the base of the RSS, to expand it. Because during Dr. Hedgewar's time, which was a 15-year period as Sarsanchalak, it was mostly, middle provinces, Maharashtra, a little bit of MP, that area. So he felt that for the expansion that was required, and especially because India would be free, he was a freedom fighter, firmly believed in that, he appointed a very young man. So with the RSS, you cannot tell. These are not predictable things, While we can analyze post and say, okay, Dattaji was, the most experienced out of the general secretaries. You also have an occasion where a 34-year-old became the Sarsanchalak. So you cannot predict, there are a lot of factors within the organization. And like I said, a collective decision-making process, which can, swing things for anyone.
Advaita ji, I just discovered a new author. I mean, he's not new. It's new for me. His name is Ravi Visvesvaraya Sharda Prasad. He was the son of Sharda Prasad, who was, I think, the speechwriter for Indira Gandhi. What he said was that in the 1977 Janata Party experiment, there was one thing that did not happen, and that was Nanaji Deshmukhji becoming the deputy prime minister. Because the story, it goes how Morarji Desai was elected. Very interesting story, and I'll share the link with with our viewers so you can read it too. And he leaves it at the end saying that Nanaji declined the deputy prime minister post, because if he had accepted it, then this breakup would not even have happened, because he had that skills to manage all the egos. There are 3 big egos, and there were 4, 5, 6. There are smaller egos also, and all these had to be managed and massaged. And the author said that it is my contention that if Nanaji Deshmukh had accepted that deputy prime ministership post, that the Janata Party would have, completed their full 5 years, and then who knows where India would have progressed from there. But right. It's just one of those things. I mean, there are so many things that happen. India's politics is as clear as mud. I mean, what happens underneath, nobody really knows. And but be that as it may, these are all lessons for us. And now going forward, RSS is actually doing quite well in the sense that they've from nowhere come and come to power in Tripura. And hopefully the same kind of experiment will be repeated in other states where they're trying really hard. Like, for example, they've had success in Telangana. They are working on Andhra Pradesh, Bengal this time, and perhaps even Tamil Nadu. I don't know how these things are, but it definitely seems like RSS knows what it needs to do, and they don't take the same script everywhere, do they? I mean, they know the ground situation and know how to really get things going.
Well, the wins are all the BJP. That's the political arm, and they kind of set the narrative and they
Right,
do
right.
their thing. The RSS is not this. I know people find this strange because they've sort of hyphenated the RSS with the BJP, and very often speak of them interchangeably. But that couldn't be further from the truth. The RSS is definitely an organization which has members who are in different walks of life. It could be politics, it could be the trade union movement, it could be the student movement, wherever you want. But itself, per se, the RSS is not in politics. It does not take these decisions. It does not plan these narratives. What it has done is that because of its social work and the fact that, they will reach places where the government cannot reach. And this is what is remarkable. For example, even in Uttarakhand, they reached the last village, one of the last villages by the border before the government did. There's no government school there, but there is an RSS school there. So, they are able to fill these gaps because of our governance system, which has been so labored in the past and corrupt. And, so many people have fallen through the cracks. They have stepped in and played the role of lifting those people up. And does that accrue benefit to BJP? Most certainly it does. But even in a state like Kerala, where they've never come to power and where they have the maximum number of shakhas and managed to win only 1 or 2 assembly seats, and that was for the first time last time, they still persevere.
Well,
this is the remarkable thing.
Kerala has mastered the art of cross voting. I mean, it is so palpable and so obvious that I remember being on a television show, I think last elections, where a CPIM candidate, the panelist, was openly accusing the LDF, no, LDF, UDF, whatever, the Congress front guy of
UDF.
not honoring the cross voting promise.
Well, I think this year is going to be interesting. Usually they do the flip, where, Congress Congress left. But this time round, there's a possibility that the communists will return to power. And it's going to take a big toll on Rahul Gandhi, because, as you know, he's now an MP from Kerala, and has been very active in the campaign there. But it's looking like Pinarayi Vijayan is going to come back to power.
Now, UDF is very good at, Congress is very good at creating narratives like, moral victory and, try to paper over all these cracks. So,
yes.
So we'll see how it goes. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your, role. You're a screenplay writer. You've written books. How busy are you these days? I mean, I know you have this initiative of food kitchen that you've started. Are you also doing any other projects?
The food kitchen is, of course, closed now, because once, we carried on for 8 months. And like I told you then, we were not an NGO, any of those things. Right. Just reacting. So that's over. I'm working now on a web series. I just finished writing a film, and the web series is also, in the works. We go to shoot mid-April, and there's another one that I'm doing based in Uttarakhand, which starts also soon. So it's been an active time in terms of creative writing. I'm quite interested. I come from the state of Uttarakhand, and we see periodic natural calamities there, and this most recently happened in February, when hundreds of I think it was over 100 people lost their lives in another deluge. And there's a particular village, if you're familiar with the Chipko movement, which was started in 1974 by a group of village women from this village rather. The founder was from this village, who embraced trees and said that, do not fell these trees. So they protected the trees. So that village, unfortunately, was swept away in this latest deluge. And people are looking to relocate, and it's quite a traumatic time for them. And you know how the news cycle is, we've all moved on. So I'm actually trying to figure out a way of going there and seeing if I can help. I don't know if I can. So that's what I want to do from the social giving back perspective. I don't know where it'll go because I have to discover things for myself, but I'm
Right.
reading up a lot on it and trying to follow up on what their life has been post this latest calamity.
Well, I wish you all the best in your endeavors, and thank you very much for taking the time out to talk to our viewers. And Advaita ji, anytime you feel like there is something that you're passionate about that you want to talk about, especially in and around Uttarakhand, please feel free to let me know, and we'll have a hangout just like this one.
Oh, thank you so much. And we have a huge Uttarakhandi population in the US as well, who
Yes,
are
yes,
very
yes.
active. So it would be wonderful to kind of know from them, connect with them, and we really need to do more for the state.
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree with you more. Thank you so much. And again, namaskar, and hope to see you soon.